Okay. Hi, I'm Nassar. I'm from Radicle. I'm leading the growth core unit, and also I've been contributing to the MBD guild at Developer DAO. Now, I kind of wanted to spend today talking about how, I guess, what we're trying to build at Radicle is like this. Closer? Is that better? Okay, good. Trying to build this like new developer economy within Web3, and I guess finally enable this idea of building together and then earning together. So like building together the way you do in open source, but I guess the difference is in Web3 is that then you have to bring together the ability to actually earn. And Amy's talk earlier kind of I think touched on this, so I don't feel like I need to clarify, but I try to try and constrain it somewhat to kind of bring it back from like the abstractness of DAOs to what I see as DAOs is like internet communities that are coordinating assets. But what we've seen at Radicle is that they struggle to onboard and coordinate contributors. And so Radicle's building tools to allow them to kind of coordinate, developers to coordinate in an internet native manner. And as I mentioned, I think the core is that the best dev teams in DAOs, we believe, will basically coordinate like the way they do in open source. And I think that we've got a fair bit of work to do to get there. At the moment, what we're seeing, I was speaking to a few teams yesterday, and I was actually surprised to hear that some of them are running Scrum. I won't name names, and that's kind of, it shows that we've got a little bit of work to do to kind of, to get kind of, bridge the gap. And that's kind of the work we're doing. I'm just checking if you guys are paying attention. Ugh, what's happened there? Is it the Wi-Fi? Yeah, I think it's off Wi-Fi. Sorry. Wait. That's right. But yeah, I can keep going, I guess. So the kind of foundation of what we're doing is Radicle spent the last 2 years building this kind of peer-to-peer code collaboration stack. So the way GitHub built centralized collaboration software around the Open Git protocol, Radicle's been building a decentralized gossip protocol that basically gossips data between nodes for collaboration. And that's kind of the foundation of the Radicle network. And then we've built a bunch of interfaces such as CLI, desktop, and the web client. And this is what it looks like. But it's okay. But yeah. So the idea is that we believe that to kind of build this new world, you kind of have to kind of be at the heart of where software development happens, and that's the heart of software development at the moment is, I would say, GitHub. And so by being at the core of the workflow, we think we can drive kind of this change of how developers work. There we go, almost there. That's how I get for the blah blah joke. This one, no, previous. But we're good. That's right. Cool. Yeah. So as I say. The CLI recently launched. We've got the desktop client and we've got the web client. So that's kind of in a good place, and the foundations are there. And then kind of the next step is kind of earning together. What we've started seeing emerge is dev teams either as sub-DAOs within the larger DAOs, having their own treasury, having their own multi-sig, and coordinating those funds as a development team. And I think by having that autonomy, you see very different behavior, and that's the kind of, I think that helps, things that help us move away from this like building these hierarchical systems where there's like Scrum used to kind of, I'm going to keep shitting on Scrum basically, but like used to basically try and basically manage and ensure that people are actually accountable. And so, having the ability to have a sub-DAO and coordinate a treasury is key. And maybe it's like funding comes from treasury. In other kind of smaller independent DAO cases, maybe funding comes from other grant programs or even investment. And ideally at some point also we'll see more and more these dev DAOs making user and partner revenue. And then the next step, once you've and this is I think the heart of everything we're doing really. I think if we can solve this, it's going to kind of really help us drive towards this open source culture, and it's about growing contribution. And I guess the two key parts of that is to kind of achieve this like open source culture is one is like contribution, making it really easy and clear how to contribute, how to get started, and get developers up and running. And that's like there's a phased process to that, and you kind of have to think about that journey and enable that journey. And that's the kind of flows we're building. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, kind of the difference in Web3 is that there's money involved, and that adds a bunch of different dynamics. And we're building workflows that allow sub DAOs and DAOs to coordinate funding out to contributors and stream them and also do one-off payments as grants. So we're building that kind of I guess the workflows for contribution, but also the kind of payment side of that. And this is actually, we did a maker workshop yesterday, and like we were talking about like the challenge of accountability, and I don't know if Dennis is here, but it was interesting because they at MakerDAO even have found this like accountability issue, and what they found is that like in a traditional organization you're accountable to like your manager, and then your manager is accountable to their boss, whereas in a DAO there's just a number of accountability challenges. There's some people are bad actors, but even the people who aren't bad actors, sometimes you just don't. Some people are well placed to like be self-accountable. Some teams are, but like as an organization to scale, you kind of have to think about the different types of characters. And I think just having that structure, did I say structure? Structure around accountability is key, and that's kind of again. And I think the fascinating part of this, as I said, is like there's team accountability to other core contributors across the DAO, and then like community-wide accountability. And I think if we're working to really nail these things. And then finally, like pay and reward. There's like paying and rewarding the contributors, and then also I guess one of the things that the Radicle project was originally founded on was this idea of like making open source sustainable, and so. Paying out to the project dependencies is something that we want to see a lot more of, and we're working on that. And so issues, grants, streams, proactive payments and retroactive payments are all things that we're building flows into kind of Radicle to enable. And this is powered by our recent kind of funding protocol that we launched called Drips, that like allows you to stream, do splits, and then also do subscription NFTs. So yeah, those are the kind of key components of, I guess, the stack. I also wanted to run through, I don't know actually what time is it? Do I get extra time for the Wi-Fi thing? For the way you guys let me down deeply. But no, so, I don't know how much time I've got. But anyway, so the Bankless is one of them. This is kind of a sub-DAO example that kind of illustrates. So they've got, like, there's a team in there, the marketing and content team. They also manage the website. They've got a treasury that they manage kind of as a team that's funded by the wider DAO. Contributors come together, they start forming and working on, like they decided they wanted to build a fully decentralized like stack within their team. So they wanted to use like Radicle to host their code and collaborate, and then like Fleek to like do deployment. And so that we want to enable that flow of like contributors coming together, developers coming and helping set that up, them being kind of like people being able to kind of show their work and be rewarded for their contribution, and then finally like deployment onto Fleek, like having that just being paid directly via Radicle, via the treasury that's managed by developers. And it's a very, very, I'm sure I'm kind of preaching to the choir here, but like in DAOs, like it's a very different like cultural model, and it feels weird to almost have this in the developer's workflow, but I think once you're actually operating as a dev DAO, you kind of do need this as in your flow, because you don't have an accounting and finance department and all that kind of stuff. So it's like it's kind of very crucial, I'd say. And then DevNode is like a smaller sub DAO, and it's kind of there's sub-DAOs, and then there's like smaller DAOs that we're seeing emerge that I'm quite excited about. It's like, I kind of say that it's the closest thing I've seen to like purely internet native, like company, like online. Like there's the whole things you heard about in the 90s where like people would meet online and do things together. But now I think like meeting online and actually being able to build entire like organizations is exciting. And with DevNode, it's kind of one I've been involved in, where like the question was asked in the Discord server in Developer DAO actually, what if we built Stack Overflow but with Web3 DAO dynamics where people are actually helpful and not mean and all of that kind of stuff. And so, yeah, so the community began to form. Then we planned out the MVP. We reached out to Ceramic, Radicle, and what's it called, Polygon about grants. And then started pulling other developers in. And like that, like emergent organization, which now can coordinate assets, is now kind of building. And then, yeah, we want to be able to track and reward that contribution via Radicle. And yeah, that's kind of what we're enabling these kind of DevDAOs to do. And then, so that's kind of the product side. Can anyone tell me how long I've got? No? 10 minutes, okay, I'm good. I also lost contact yesterday, so I'm like half blind. So that's good. Anyway, so interoperable open source ecosystem. So that's kind of the product side, and we're building that to kind of enable developers and DevDAOs. But then we also we've put a lot of work into building this peer-to-peer protocol and network, and now what on our side that allows like any project that's building. That wants to build on the data with the source code, the Git-based data, the issues and the patches in our network, they can read from it and write to it and trust that we're not going to kind of suddenly become rent collectors, and that's I think quite powerful. And same thing with Drips, they can use our streaming and splits protocol and subscription NFTs. And then we're also using a bunch of the protocols and standards in Web3. And I think as we're very early and everyone's I literally I think we're at a point where everyone is just like doesn't want to hear about another DAO tool, but it's like everyone smiles because I think it's a bit much. But I think as people build like valuable flows and they are interoperable, I think it's going to be a game changer. It's probably what's excited me about Web3 the most. And two examples. One is Wonder. So we've been speaking a fair bit to Wonder about how they'd be using our protocols. They're interested in enriching their contributor profiles with like Radicle data on like developers and how they've been contributing. They're looking at using Drips protocol for streaming out to contributors. And then we're also, I think quite interested in this idea of like, maybe having the shared data structures for tasks and cards that, as you manage work. Asana and GitHub integration, if anyone's ever used it, knows how terrible it is, right? And so I think we're really excited about building like a deep integration there and kind of what that would enable. And then DevNode, this is kind of the Web3 kind of Stack Overflow that we're kind of starting to build out. And we're interested, the idea of a question being asked or answered and you're able to kind of immediately see the profile and reputation in terms of their contributions and who they've collaborated with on DevNode is kind of the data that like DevNode would be using, and from our case, on our Radicle org pages, we can see like having a tab for questions being asked, and people can ask questions, and you have this kind of interoperable data ecosystem as kind of what we're excited about. And yeah, just to end with, I kind of want to mention that Radicle's kind of built this peer-to-peer network. We've had thousands of projects kind of hosted on the Radicle network. Pretty much every top project has done so, and that kind of means that if you haven't, you're not a top project. But it's so we've got that foundation in place, and the next step now is really building out the. I'm seeing LivePair laugh. Have you guys dropped? You haven't. But yeah, what's it called? So next steps is very much building out these flows and tools to allow developers to really kind of get productive. And yeah, I guess as kind of Amy mentioned earlier, that we are also DAOing. We're kind of building out a DAO, and we're kind of progressively decentralizing quite rapidly. Abby and Shelby are and others as well are like doing amazing work and transitioning us to a DAO. The growth core unit is one of the first kind of sub-DAOs that spun out, and it's kind of teaching us a lot on like just how that works and how that's different. And there's like a bunch of challenges, and there's a bunch of like the amount of autonomy I have and our team has and what we're able to do. I think it is a game changer for those who are kind of early in the transition period or haven't done it yet. And yeah, that's kind of that. And then finally, thank you, and yeah, thanks for listening, I guess. Cheers. Pardon? Q&A. Yeah, sure. We can introduce them and I'll pass the mic. Yeah, sure. Sounds good.
You guys have any questions? Hello? No questions?
So is the idea that this is like a drop-in replacement for GitHub and that all the same developer workflows will go over, or is the vision broader that you want to capture like non-code based workflows as well?
Yes, it's a good question. I'd say for the first thing is that like for now we're telling teams that we'd expect them to mirror, and we're focusing on like the contributor onboarding and kind of engagement workflows and payment workflows. We're not far off like having the core workflows that you'd need, and the aim is, I think, for at least the next 6 to 12 months, for people to mirror. But I think long term, yeah, we'd want to build a replacement to GitHub. Just don't tell them that. Actually, it's not. It's we want to sneak attack. But with regards to the wider thing, it's a really interesting question. I think it's one we're going to be exploring. We're very focused. There's a lot of work to do on like building this thing out for developers. I think we'll be focused on that for quite a while. But the space is moving so fast, and the contribution question and how those flows work is a massive open question for everyone right now. And I think, yeah, we'll see. But yeah, cheers.
Anyone else?
Cool. Maybe we should ask LivePair why they haven't. No, joking. Pardon? How do you set up a node? We'll speak. There we go. Cool. Yeah, I'm just messing with them. Cool. Good. Cheers. Is that everyone? Thanks, everyone.